Car culture in the 1960s wasn't just about transportation. It was a decade where speed, style, and horsepower began to shape an entirely new identity for American automobiles. The family sedan was no longer the dream. It was the muscle car that captured imaginations. With big block V8 engines, aggressive styling, and marketing campaigns designed to ignite youthful rebellion, muscle cars became symbols of freedom and power. But not every experiment worked out. While some of these cars earned their place as legends, others were rushed to market, overhyped, or simply too heavy and impractical to live up to the muscle car name. Today's deep dive is dedicated to both sides of that history. We'll revisit the iconic machines that defined the golden age of American performance, and also the cars that, despite flashy engines or bold claims, fell short of true muscle greatness. To get the full picture, we'll break it down into the 7 worst and 6 best muscle cars of the 1960s. The 7 worst muscle cars of the 1960s. 1962 Pontiac Catalina Super Duty. The 1962 Catalina Super Duty was Pontiac's way of flexing muscle in the early drag racing scene. Under its hood sat the thunderous 421 cubic inch V8, an engine built to terrorize quarter-mile tracks. With factory-rated horsepower that enthusiasts knew was understated, it could rocket down a straight strip with the kind of force that left competitors scrambling. On paper, it looked untouchable. The issue was the Catalina itself. This was a big, heavy, full-size car, and the body was never designed to dance through corners. Once the road bent, the Super Duty became clumsy, making it painfully obvious that Pontiac had built a car with only one job. And sure, it did that job well, but buyers wanted more than just bragging rights at the drag strip. Adding to its exclusivity, production numbers were low and prices were steep. This turned it into more of a factory experiment than a genuine muscle car contender. Collectors today admire its raw power and rarity, but history tends to remember it as unbalanced. A beast in a straight line, yes, but not the well-rounded muscle machine that the 1960s soon demanded. 1969 Pontiac Executive 400. The Pontiac Executive 400 looked like a muscle car hiding inside a full-size family cruiser. It carried a big V8 and wore a badge that suggested authority. But the illusion didn't last long. The car's enormous size made it better suited for rolling down highways than tearing up streets. It wasn't agile, and it definitely wasn't light on its feet. Pontiac's intention was to give buyers the comfort of a large car with the thrill of added horsepower. The result, though, was a machine that confused brute strength with actual performance. Sure, the engine could move the car quickly in a straight line, but when it came to handling or spirited driving, it fell flat. Compared to smaller, purpose-built muscle cars of the time, the Executive felt more like a showpiece than a competitor. This car highlights a common mistake of the late 1960s, assuming that adding horsepower was enough to join the muscle car ranks. Buyers, however, knew better. They wanted cars that were not only powerful, but also affordable, balanced, and fun. The Executive 400 never checked those boxes, and as a result, it ended up being more forgotten than celebrated. 1965 Buick Special Deluxe. In 1965, Buick introduced the Special Deluxe with hopes of offering a stylish mix of comfort and performance. It was a mid-size car positioned in a market hungry for muscle, but it never quite lived up to the hype. Buick gave it modest styling and a smooth ride, but when it came to performance, the car felt restrained. While rivals were pushing the boundaries with aggressive looks and raw power, the Special Deluxe seemed more like a polite nod to performance rather than a genuine attempt at it. It could move respectably, especially when equipped with larger engines, but there was little excitement behind the wheel. Instead of adrenaline, the car leaned heavily into refinement, and that approach didn't resonate in the muscle car arena. The biggest problem was that it simply lacked personality. It wasn't wild, it wasn't fast enough to stand out, and it wasn't bold in its design. In the thick of the 1960s muscle car wars, being average was the fastest way to be forgotten. The Special Deluxe was comfortable, sure, but it was not memorable. Enthusiasts looking for thrills quickly looked elsewhere. 1966 Dodge Charger, first generation. The Dodge Charger eventually became a legend, but its first-generation model in 1966 was far from iconic. With its fastback roofline and unique styling, it stood out, but not always for the right reasons. The design divided opinions, and many buyers just didn't connect with the look. Under the hood, Dodge offered a range of engines, including big block options that promised plenty of power. The problem was the weight. The Charger was heavy, and its handling lacked excitement. Drivers expecting a nimble, thrilling ride were instead met with sluggish responses. The interior was bold, with features like a full-length center console that looked futuristic. But those touches didn't make up for the car's performance shortcomings. Critics of the time found the Charger awkward compared to its rivals, many of which were lighter, sharper, and more engaging. Sales reflected the disappointment as the first-generation model struggled to attract buyers. It wasn't until Dodge redesigned the Charger in 1968, giving it aggressive lines and improved dynamics, that it truly hit its stride. Looking back, the 1966 Charger feels more like a rough draft than the polished icon it would eventually become. 1974 Ford Mustang II Cobra. The Mustang had redefined the car market in the 1960s, but by the mid-1970s, Ford was scrambling to adapt to changing times. Rising insurance rates, stricter emissions regulations, and the oil crisis forced the company to rethink the Mustang. The result was the Mustang II, and the Cobra trim was supposed to keep the muscle spirit alive. Instead, it became a symbol of disappointment. The downsized body made the car feel more like a compact economy vehicle than a performance machine. Power was severely restricted, and while the Cobra package added stripes and spoilers, it didn't add the excitement buyers expected. Muscle car fans who had adored the original Mustang felt betrayed. The sense of rebellion and speed that had defined the nameplate seemed lost. Even casual drivers, those less concerned with racing heritage, found the car underwhelming. It was smaller, weaker, and awkwardly styled in ways that didn't resonate. The Mustang II Cobra has since earned a reputation as a low point for the brand, remembered more for what it wasn't than for what it offered. It perfectly captured the crash of the muscle car wave that had started just a decade earlier. 1967 Chevrolet Biscayne 427. Chevrolet's Biscayne was usually a no-frills, budget-friendly car, but in 1967, buyers could order it with the mighty 427 cubic-inch V8. On paper, this seemed like the perfect way to surprise competitors at the stoplight. A cheap, stripped-down, full-size car hiding a monster under the hood. The reality was less impressive. The Biscane's size and weight made it difficult to handle, and while it could certainly move in a straight line, it wasn't a car built for anything beyond that. Braking and cornering were compromises, and the overall driving experience lacked finesse. Enthusiasts who tried to push it quickly realized it wasn't cut out for anything but raw bursts of speed. That made the Biscane 427 more of a drag strip novelty than a true muscle car contender. It fit the bill for those who wanted big horsepower on a budget, but it didn't have the charisma, style, or balance of Chevy's own Chevelle or Camaro. Today, it's remembered as an oddball in Chevrolet's lineup, a car with the heart of a performance machine trapped inside a body that just wasn't built for it. Why these cars failed? All these cars shared one critical flaw. They misunderstood what muscle cars were supposed to be. A big engine was not enough. Buyers wanted cars that were fast, affordable, stylish, and balanced enough to deliver thrills on everyday roads. When automakers tried to mix muscle with luxury, the result often felt confused. When they stuffed huge engines into oversized cars, the weight ruined the fun. The real icons of the era succeeded because they captured a formula that was both simple and exciting. Cars like the GTO, Mustang, and Camaro delivered accessibility and adrenaline in a package that felt alive. The ones here missed that magic. They remind us that performance isn't just about horsepower. It's about the complete experience behind the wheel. The 6 best muscle cars of the 1960s. Pontiac GTO. The Pontiac GTO arrived in 1964 and immediately turned the automotive world upside down. Engineers took the mid-sized Tempest, slid in a 389 cubic inch V8, and created something that felt completely new. The idea was simple: big power, smaller body, and a price tag within reach of younger buyers. What they ended up with wasn't just a car, it was a movement. Performance was solid for its time. Depending on the setup, the GTO delivered quarter-mile runs that made rivals nervous. But the true magic wasn't only in the numbers. It was the way the GTO projected confidence. Wide stance, clean lines, and an unmistakable presence gave it the swagger drivers wanted. What set the GTO apart was accessibility. It wasn't reserved for executives or deep-pocket collectors. Regular buyers could afford it, and that democratized performance. It quickly became the poster child for speed you could drive every day. The GTO's influence spread fast. Other automakers scrambled to copy the formula, and the muscle car era was born. Today, the GTO is remembered not just as a car, but as the one that defined what muscle truly meant in the 1960s. Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. Chevrolet's Camaro ZL1 was a rare creation, a machine born from performance obsession rather than marketing. Only 69 examples rolled off the line in 1969, each one fitted with an all-aluminum 427 cubic inch V8. This engine wasn't just powerful, it was lighter than the typical iron block, giving the ZL1 a serious edge where it counted. Output figures were conservatively rated, but owners knew the truth. With tuning, these cars easily topped 500 horsepower, a staggering number for the era. The ZL1 was built with one goal: to dominate on the strip. And it delivered, becoming a weapon for those lucky enough to get their hands on one. The downside? Price. The ZL1 was expensive, pushing it out of reach for the average buyer. But scarcity added to its mystique. Owning one wasn't just about having a fast Camaro, It was about joining an elite club of drivers with something few others would ever see, let alone drive. Even today, the ZL1 holds legendary status. It represents the extreme side of 1960s muscle cars, a reminder of what manufacturers could achieve when they cared more about performance records than profit margins. Ford Mustang Boss 429. In 1969, Ford unleashed the Mustang Boss 429, a car built with one purpose: NASCAR. The massive 429 cubic inch V8 under the hood was designed to meet racing homologation requirements, and to make it street legal, Ford stuffed it into a limited number of Mustangs. What resulted was one of the most radical pony cars ever offered to the public. The Boss 429's wide body and aggressive stance gave away its intentions. This was no ordinary Mustang. The specially built engine produced impressive power, though factory ratings were famously understated. With a bit of tuning, it could deliver jaw-dropping numbers that turned it into a serious threat, both on the track and the street. Production numbers were low, and the price was steep compared to standard Mustangs, making it an exclusive piece of machinery. Buyers who managed to secure one got a car that was equal parts collectible and intimidating. Over time, the Boss 429 has become one of the crown jewels of the muscle car era. It was expensive, it was rare, and it carried engineering bred directly from competition. Few cars embodied raw racing heritage on the street as effectively as this Mustang. Plymouth Roadrunner. The Plymouth Roadrunner burst onto the scene in 1968 with a simple idea: make muscle affordable again. As performance cars grew pricier and loaded with extras, Plymouth decided to strip things back. Out went the fancy trim. In came bare-bones practicality. And at the heart sat a powerful engine that delivered thrills without draining wallets. Base models came with a potent 383 cubic inch V8, and buyers could step up to the fearsome 426 Hemi if they wanted real fireworks. The focus wasn't on luxury. It was all about speed and attitude. To drive the point home, Plymouth even licensed the famous cartoon character for branding, giving the car instant personality. The gamble paid off. The Roadrunner struck a chord with buyers who wanted raw performance without paying for leather seats or polished chrome. Sales numbers were strong, and it quickly became one of the most popular cars in the muscle scene. By keeping the formula simple, Plymouth created something lasting. The Roadrunner was proof that fun didn't have to come with a premium price tag. It embodied the spirit of the working-class muscle car and carved out a well-deserved place in history. Chevrolet Chevelle SS. The Chevelle Supersport was Chevrolet's answer to the muscle car craze, and it became one of the most versatile names of the 1960s. Buyers could equip it with a variety of engines, from respectable small blocks to the mighty 454 big block, which turned the Chevelle SS into a highway stormer. This flexibility meant the car appealed to a wide audience, giving it a reach that many rivals couldn't match. Styling played a big role too. The Chevelle SS carried clean lines, wide shoulders, and just enough attitude to let everyone know it meant business. Add in optional stripes, badges, and performance wheels, and it stood out at every stoplight. On the road, the Chevelle SS delivered power that satisfied both casual drivers and serious speed enthusiasts. Its balance of affordability, practicality, and performance made it one of Chevrolet's most successful offerings. Families could daily drive it, and weekend warriors could take it to the track. The Chevelle SS didn't just participate in the muscle car movement, it helped shape it. With its range of options and its ability to please different kinds of drivers, it became a classic symbol of accessible American performance. Dodge Charger Daytona. When Dodge set out to conquer NASCAR in 1969, it didn't hold back. The Charger Daytona arrived with a massive rear wing and a sharp aerodynamic nose cone that made it impossible to ignore. These weren't just wild styling cues, they were functional, designed to give Dodge a speed advantage on high-speed ovals. Under the skin, buyers could choose serious power plants, including the legendary 426 Hemi. Combined with the Daytona's aerodynamic design, the result was staggering performance. On the track, it became the first car to officially break the 200-mile-per-hour barrier in NASCAR, cementing its place in racing history. On the street, the Daytona was no less outrageous. Its extreme looks divided opinion, but nobody could deny its presence. It was built in limited numbers to satisfy homologation rules, which only added to its mystique over time. While not the most practical daily driver, the Daytona proved how far muscle cars could be pushed when engineering and competition goals aligned. It was more than just a car. It was a rolling experiment that delivered results. Today, it stands as one of the boldest, most collectible icons of the muscle car era. The story of 1960s muscle cars is a reminder that history is never written by the winners alone. The legends, the GTO, the Boss 429, and the Camaro ZL1 shine brightest because they captured the essence of the era: raw power, attainable performance, and a sense of excitement that made every drive feel larger than life. But the failures matter too. The Catalina Super Duty, the Buick Special Deluxe, and the early Dodge Charger show us what happens when ambition outpaces execution, or when manufacturers misread what drivers truly wanted. Together, these successes and disappointments paint a complete picture of the muscle car decade. When we look back now, it isn't just about horsepower or quarter-mile times. It's about how these machines reflected an America obsessed with speed, freedom, and individuality. Some cars will forever be remembered as icons, while others live on as cautionary tales. And that balance, the highs and the lows, is what makes the history of muscle cars so compelling. If you've made it this far, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these cars do you think deserved its reputation? Which ones do you feel were unfairly judged? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the golden age of muscle, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with fellow gearheads, and subscribe for more stories that explore the triumphs, the failures, and the fascinating in-betweens of automotive history.